All right, good evening, parents and educators, anyone that's here to join us this evening during our parent info session. We're super excited tonight. I feel like every month we have a special info session, but this month I feel like is super special just because we're featuring two of our incredible coaches, and they're speaking about their journey as mothers, living the dyslexic journey with children who have dyslexia. So we're going to get started with them in just a minute. And again, here they are. Can't wait to hear from them. As a quick reminder, next week we have our training camp. So that's for grades 3rd through 8th grade. Those 3 days, if you want to come get a taste of the academy, it's a great opportunity to do so. They'll have access to all the classes that our full-time students have access to. And just really, they get immersed in who we are, what the academy is, and it's a lot of fun and a lot of learning, and I know that they'll enjoy it. We have lots of positive feedback after each of our camps, our training camps. We do them monthly. If you would like to register your child for one of our training camps, the registration for this one ends tomorrow, but again, we do offer them monthly. You can just visit our website and you'll find that information there. A little bit about the Academy Virtual. So we are a private school virtually. We serve grades 3rd through 8th. And we also have tutoring sessions available. So if your child can either be a full-time student with us, or they can receive any type of tutoring services in any of the areas that they see, that you see a need. We provide structured literacy, reading comprehension and phonemic awareness, math, and writing. Our classes meet 4 hours a day, 4 days a week, and we have low student-teacher ratios, especially in our structured literacy class, no more ever than 2 to 1, so no more than 2 students to 1 teacher. So small group all the time, which is what is best for our kiddos. So dyslexia, I'm sure that you are experiencing it in some way, either as an educator or a parent. It's probably why you're here. But just a quick overview. So dyslexia is a language-based learning difference affecting students in all grades and in life, even beyond the classroom. Early intervention with structured literacy improves reading skills. So structured literacy is a very explicit, systematic reading curriculum, and it is taught by trained individuals. It helps all children learn to read, but is completely vital for children who have been diagnosed with dyslexia. We also specialize in teaching students with ADHD, other struggling readers that maybe haven't been diagnosed, and other neurodiverse learning challenges. All right, so up first is one of our amazing math coaches, Rosemarie Colon. I first just have to give a little personal shout out because my son is a full-time student at the Academy Virtual and absolutely loves his math class. I mean, I cannot speak highly enough to her. She just is incredible, and by the end of her slide, you'll understand why he loves her so much. But all right, Rosemarie. So we are going to talk to you today about finding your greatness and challenges, right?
Yeah.
All right.
So basically, I'm the math coach, as you know, and yeah, so I'm a certified math teacher, and I taught in private and public settings.
Perfect. And you have transferred over to the Academy Virtual. You've been with us for quite some time now. And can you speak to us a little bit about teaching and how you got into teaching, and maybe speak to some of your pictures that you have there on our slide?
Sure. Well, I was my father had told me that I was good in math and science, and I could see that on my standardized tests that I was much better in that than reading and writing and stuff like that. So I got a Bachelor of Science degree in mathematics and a minor in computer science. And I'll talk about the other minor later on. And so I became a computer programmer, a mainframe computer programmer, which is very different from the object-oriented computer programming now. And I found it very cold, so I left it and to work with kids. So I went back to school to get my teaching certificate, and so I taught in the private and public settings. But I really I wasn't able to make ends meet, so I really wanted to get married and have kids and homeschool. I met some homeschoolers, and I was like, oh, gee, I really want to do that. So I through grace, I met my wonderful husband, and we had one child, and I homeschooled him up through 8th grade, and so I really wanted to help him in many ways, and so when it came time for fractions, he had some difficulty. So I really did everything I could, and we would make like fraction brownies, fraction pancakes, because he really liked those things. We would use base 10 blocks, and with borrowing and carrying, leaving fractions there for a minute, we would use our kitchen tile floor, and that really made a big difference. And then we also used a lot of math literature, which was really made math fun. Um, so.
You are so good at that. You're so good at making math fun.
Oh, thank you.
So, and I feel like I love these pictures and I love this slide because I feel like even before the Academy existed, you had already encompassed exactly what a huge part of the Academy is. So we really strive each and every day to bring as much real life impact and opportunities into learning as we possibly can. So with the brownies and the pancakes, you were already doing that. And in such a great multi-sensory way too, which we know our children with dyslexia, they absolutely need and learn best through. So
Yeah.
I love that. And it makes me hungry. The brownies look terrific. All right, Rosemarie. So finding your greatness through teaching, if you want to talk to us a little bit about this slide and kind of what this represents.
I'm going to ask you to go back to the
Oh,
prior.
sure. Yep.
Yeah.
You
There
got
was
it.
one other point, which it would be easy to just not talk about, but it is about parent shame,
Mm.
and and that I experienced parent shame because I was like, gee, I did eventually get my son diagnosed, and I was like, okay, so I was doing the accommodations that they recommended, and more so, and even more. And I was doing things from scratch, and I would stay up late trying to think, well, how can I reach him and everything? And still, in some cases, it didn't work. And I was like, well, he's just lazy. That's all. He's lazy. That's what it is, you know? And it wasn't really until the academy where I really was like, it was me who was wrong. I mean, neither of us were lazy. Maybe one day or two you might have been lazy. I don't know. Kids can be that way. But now I mean, I was a very good teacher, and I poured myself out for my son. I gave my all. And but now teaching is even easier because I have a better understanding by working for the academy. I understand the kids better. I can reach them better, and that's pretty much what I have to say there. And it's more fun. It's more fun. So,
Yeah. I appreciate you saying that because I know as a parent and any of the parents that we have joining us here tonight, I know that that's something that we absolutely can relate to is that, that parent shame, it's real. And, but when we know better, we do better. And, I feel like that's exactly what's happening here. So thank you for sharing that, Rosemarie.
sure.
All right. If you want to, wouldn't mind talking to us a little bit about your son's diagnosis,
Sure.
and then kind of going through the rest of that slide for us.
Sure. Well, my my son was diagnosed. Well, I mean, it seems like he might have been misdiagnosed, like you talked in the the book Dyslexic Advantage. That I think it's the WISC test doesn't really test what doesn't show well whether the person has dyslexia, and it also doesn't pick up, or one of the tests doesn't pick up on, like if the person has reading comprehension, then it's hard to tease out if it is a dyslexia problem or not. Like both my son and I have no trouble with decoding words and things like that, but we both have issues with reading comp. And so there's that. My son has ADHD and some other things. He also has dysgraphia, which is trouble handwriting. It's tiredness, and it's like childish handwriting and things like that. And I saw myself in him, and by educating myself to help him, I felt like I was also learning about myself, and it was like, I helped him and helped myself by helping him and everything and all that. But anyway, so yeah, and so reading comprehension was like a big deal. But the dysgraphia, which I'll talk about on a different slide, but it's like I would have him write 2 lines a day and then everything else typed. And now he's going to a brick and mortar high school where they have an iPad and with a keyboard attached. I mean, it's a regular high school, so I feel proud that he and I both worked very hard so that he is not. He's not in. How can I say this? I don't want to say like it's a bad thing, but I don't want to use the word mainstreamed either. He's not in. He's just in a regular classroom. Let me say that.
Mhm.
He's in a regular classroom at a regular high school. So he and I worked very hard. So he does it. He has it there. And he didn't want to be under mom for 10th, 9th through 12th grade. And so that's fine, you know. Oh, okay, sorry, almost dropped something.
It's
But
okay.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, so basically, can you go back?
Was there anything more that you go ahead.
Um, yeah. So, yeah, I think that's it for there.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry.
That's okay.
Yeah. So in the process of educating my son, I had him in homeschool um, science fairs, and that was really great because he had to present and we couldn't be around. He had to just do that on his own. And then eventually he got the Subaru of America Award. It was only one given out for 6th through 8th grade. And so he won that for engineering. That was like, woohoo, yeah. But he also got $250. Woo! We spent on a what's that thing? It has the 2 things on the side. I forget what it's called. I don't know. It's like a video game thing, and it has a blue thing and a red thing on either side. Probably somebody knows. And they use their thumbs a lot. I don't remember. Okay.
That's awesome.
Anyway,
Rosemary, can I ask you a quick question?
Switch. It
And
was a
it's
Switch. It was a Switch.
oh
He got a
yes, yes,
Switch.
yes,
Yeah.
yes,
Yeah.
yes. Wow, that's awesome. That's an
Yeah.
incredible prize.
Yeah.
Um, So I know you talk here about making accommodations, and because we work together and we've done different, book study together, and we've just been in different meetings together, and I've had the privilege of hearing you talked about some of the accommodations that you did for your son when you were homeschooling him.
Hmm.
I know that they've helped me even with Sam implementing some accommodations in the home. So I don't know if now would be an okay time for you to kind of speak to some of the different accommodations that you would do when you were working with him at home.
Oh, sure. Sure. I uh, with reading, but with writing, I would have him write 2 lines a day, and I also had like a stencil, and I had various things for handwriting. For reading, it was something because I history was, how can I say, I want to, it's like it's always a twofer when I talk about this. It's my son and I. It's both our journeys at the same time. So reading comp was something that I struggled with. And so once we got to middle school history, I was like, how can I do this? The story version of history dried up, and then I had a textbook, and we were going to do world history, and I was like, oh, how am I going to do that? And so I was like, oh, great. I have to actually open the textbook, read it and understand it so I can explain it to him. And I was like, I hate this. But anyway, so I was like, what do I do? What do I do? What do I do? And the good thing is that both of us kind of think alike. And, so I was like, okay, I have to read one paragraph and write a one sentence summary, read the next paragraph, write a one sentence summary, and so on and so forth. Then I would either give him the sentences with one word deleted and have him fill that in, or have him write sentences and then we compare. And and also outside of history or even within history, we would use audiobooks when needed. We would watch movies to, like just like anybody would, to help out with things. We would use jingles and um, uh, Quizlet. I would make Quizlet notes for him. He could use like the matching game with Quizlet and or flashcards and various other things. Actually, I have a slide on that, and I can't remember. It's kind of like I'm kind of like a deer caught in headlights here. It's on a slide. Just look at the slide.
Okay.
It's okay.
Oh, I
There it
think that
is.
was
Here you go
actually the
back.
next one. Yep, there
Yeah,
we go.
it's okay. Yeah, but
So
yeah,
Rosemary, because just in our experience in studying, dyslexia, I feel like you touched base again, like you didn't purposefully do that, but you were using um, your strengths that you knew to help yourself learn, and you
sure.
use those same
Yes,
things to help your son.
yes,
And
yes,
so that chunking that you did where you read a paragraph and then
yeah,
you wrote a description is so huge for our children with dyslexia who struggle with working memory, where they cannot hold that much information in
yeah,
their brain at a time.
yeah.
So just
Wow,
that mother intuition,
wow,
brought the best out with that.
wow,
But that's
yeah,
exactly, a huge
wow,
accommodation that our parents can do at home if they're reading with their children. Definitely breaking that text down, stopping, summarizing it, having them draw a
yeah.
picture. So I love that you did that with
Thank
him
you,
because that was
thank you. Thank
perfect.
you, and thank you so much. And I would say my son, he on both standardized tests for, like whatever it is, the thing that diagnoses you or something, the educational thing, the WISC and all that. He had two, one at the end of third grade and one at the end of eighth grade. They both said he has very low working memory and processing speed,
Mm-hmm.
and so it's very unfortunate. But and he was only diagnosis with dyslexia was dysgraphia, which falls under that umbrella. But it could be like the book said that he has it, but it hasn't been teased out and diagnosed properly. But I was going to say something that related to that. I forget what it was.
Yeah, they call those the stealth dyslexics. Do you remember that? Like they're like
Yes,
stealth
I
mode
do.
where it's really, really
Yeah,
hard to identify
yeah,
them, but it's
yeah,
definitely there. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And I forget what it is. If I remember, I'll say it. I don't remember
Okay.
anymore. But
Okay.
anyway, yeah. But yeah.
Anything else that you wanted to add to these amazing accommodations
Oh,
that
thank
you
you.
put into place for your son?
Um, I, I just, I don't know. I just remember history was my worst subject in school, and having to teach it was like, oh, I remember now. Was like, oh my gosh, how can I do this? And I did get a tutor when necessary, like for composition, because like anything with the language arts I worked super hard, but it didn't come naturally to me. Um, and oh, I'm gonna lose it again now. Maybe it's short-term memory. But yeah, yeah, I don't know. It'll come back to me.
Yeah, and our jingles, like, that's another thing because of our creative mindset kiddos,
Mhm.
definitely music and arts and things like that is something that they typically gravitate towards. So, it's, really hard for them to
Yeah,
store certain things in working
yeah,
memory, but when you put a tune to it and
yeah,
they can
yeah.
sing it, it opens up a whole new universe for them.
Oh,
So, I love that one as well.
I remember now. My son told me, he said, I was like, wow, because I was thinking, I'm teaching my son history. I hope I don't screw this up. He said he learned so much more from me than from his private high school that we pay for. It's not public, it's private. And I was like, wow, Wow. So I did have an online source, an online professor, but the textbook was at home and I always stayed like 2 weeks ahead of him and everything. I was like the professor's helper kind of thing, whatever, you know.
That's awesome. Yeah, you gave
Yeah.
them access to that education, right?
Yeah.
And that's all
Yeah.
that we want for any of our kiddos, right? Is for
Yeah.
them to
Yeah.
have the same access that any child has. It's just our schools are so text heavy. So if you have
Yeah.
a child that has trouble in reading, it's really
Mhm.
putting them at a disadvantage. And
Yeah.
so unlocking doors and giving them accommodations, just like you did with your son, allows them to access that
Mhm.
information.
Yeah.
Because our children are brilliant, and I'm sure you saw that in your son.
Yes.
We just have to put them in an environment that allows them to express that brilliance, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Awesome. All right. Love this part. All right, Rosemary. So you talked about struggling with reading comprehension in school and
Mhm.
about, history.
Mhm.
If you want to talk to your experience a little bit, in college and about how you had to work much harder and how that all
Mhm.
kind of came full circle for
Yeah.
you.
Yeah. 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 I remember, I think it was after, I mean, going back to high school, well, after high school, but focused on thinking about it. One of my friends from high school said, "I remember you took all your books home, and like she would never take her books home, and most kids wouldn't. I would take all my books home every day because I just had to work harder than a lot of other students, to really study and understand, and then read, and then be like." I don't know what I read, and then read it again. I don't know what I read. Reading. I mean, I can decode. I can read the words. I can spell well, but it's like, I have to answer these questions. I'm like, I don't know, go back and try to run into it somehow. Like, oh,
Mhm.
hope I find the answer,
Mhm.
but it was just hard. And I didn't have the skills or finesse to figure out how to figure it out when I was a kid. I went to public school and everything. But yeah, so that's where that was at. And I remember being a freshman in college and my professor assigning a tutor to me because I wasn't doing well. And I was like, how will I, continue on in my college career? And the answer is work super hard. And I did. I actually graduated cum laude by working super hard. Um, and I already said the second part, which is, the dream of teaching and deciding to homeschool. And what I find that I'm a different person from when I taught and from when I was a student and now teaching at the academy. I've grown and learned, and as you teach, you learn more. And teaching at the academy, I know even more. And then stepping back, flashback again, the last part of the slide there is, and I felt funny. I felt so unladylike saying the last phrase on the slide, but anyway, I'll just say it. Before I went into teaching, or even as a secondary ed math teacher. I'm actually a secondary ed math teacher. And the reason why primarily is so that because if I taught math in the elementary or middle school, I would have to teach other subjects like reading, like
Mm,
history
mm,
and writing. And I'm like, no, not doing that,
mm,
so I guess I'll do secondary ed, which I was qualified to do. I'm like, I can do that. I had Calc 4, I had everything, and it's like, what's hard about that? But anyway, so what did I do? How did I get my information as an adult? Through documentaries, TV, talking to people, taking polls, like, well, what do you think of that? What do you think of that? What do you think of that? And so, and I watched the entire series of King of Queens and other stuff. Well, King of Queens was my favorite for a long while. And one time the male lead, Doug, goes to a friend. He says, reading blows. And I was like, yeah, it really does blow. I just totally was like, he's completely right. It does blow. Yeah, it's like reading blows. But anyway, so don't worry, people. The story doesn't stay there. But anyway,
mm.
but
I love it. And even though you said that,
yeah,
leads us into this part, right?
yeah, yeah. So what happened was, as a homeschooler, and once I got to middle school, I paid for an online source to help out with science and history, and so that was so much a month. And so then I was like, hey, why not? why not? Because it's a whole month, and I hate just kissing money goodbye. I'm like, no, we're going to use every dollar of this. So it was like, okay, school ended like in May, but we paid up through June 13th or whatever. Okay, so now I can study Hamlet, because one thing I didn't tell you was not only was I a minor in not only did I have a minor in computer science, but I also had a minor in English lit, which is kind of weird. And it's like, what? It's like, like, why would you be a minor in English lit? And that's what my father said to me. He said, Rosemarie, why do you want a minor in English lit? And he said this because he cared about me, not to be mean. He said, you're not good in that, so why do that? And I said, because I love it. Now, good. And of course, when I got out of school, it was like, well, I don't have to read, so that's it. But I loved English lit. I loved studying it and learning from it and everything. So anyway, blah, blah, blah. So I had this online source that I was already prepaid, and then I paid for the summer portion, which was just for me, and it was pretty inexpensive. But I was like, I'm going to use every penny. Every penny must be spent. So I just crammed in the literature. So a certain person who won't be mentioned prevented me from putting all the literature I put up there that I studied. There was probably like 16, 17 different books. But I started out with Hamlet, and it was fabulous. And it just, I was like, oh, this is awesome. But I was like, at first I was like, how am I going to do this? And it was like, okay, I'm going to read it and I'm going to fall asleep. And then someone said, well, listen to LibriVox. They dramatically rate it with a different person for each character. So I was like, oh, that's cool. And then my son said, listen to it both at the same time. And I was like, oh, listen and read at the same time. I was like, oh, that's awesome. I did that, and it just came alive. And then I listened to the professor online. I was able, if the text was old enough, I could grab the text online and copy the paragraph or whatever, or section that the professor was speaking of, put it into my Word file and put his notes next to it. So then I could go back and reread and then write a summary, and then write a summary of the summary. And it was fascinating how the author always talked about his own time as like the character was a reflection, and what the character was doing and what he was experiencing was a reflection of what was going around the author at the time. And it was just fascinating learning history through that. And it turns out that my son loves that too, and he's experiencing that at his private high school, and it's awesome. And also I want to say that taking this class and having the schedule, so the summer, it has to be the summertime, because I have this block of time, because I can't just do it overnight. Some people could read a book in a night. I can never do that. Having a schedule and making the financial investment really encouraged me to follow through. And by doing that summer after summer, I was able to get through so many books, and it was fascinating. It was so awesome. And I was like, yes, I did this. And it was allowing me to recoup what I was forced to do as a kid, but now I love it. And it was just phenomenal. It was phenomenal.
And Rosemarie, do you feel like maybe you had a different experience because you were able to access it differently than when you were a child? When you were
Oh,
a child, you were just given the book and I'm sure
yeah,
told, to read it
yeah,
or whatever. But then as an
yeah,
adult, you had these
yes,
other things
yes,
that you were able to access,
yes,
the
yes,
audiobooks and the things like that. So you had a
yes.
whole new experience
Yes,
with
absolutely.
this new.
I can remember learning about King Lear and buying crib notes and reading it and having shame. Because oh, I grabbed the crib. I don't want to flunk this test. I know she's not going to have crib notes stuff on there, but I don't understand a single thing. I fell asleep. I got to read the crib notes to somehow make it through. And but now I'm like, wow. I mean, just learning about dyslexic advantage. I'm not saying that I'm dyslexic. I've never been diagnosed, but anyway, and if I am, it's probably borderline or less, but whatever. It was just amazing. I mean, it was like the difference. I mean, it's like the book was saying that dyslexic advantage was saying people with dyslexia should be given like a study guide and notes and things like that, because it's too hard otherwise. There's short-term memory and everything else. But anyway, it was just phenomenal being able to do it this way. And then to share that joy with my family, you know, and it's just amazing. And with other friends, it was just amazing, really amazing. And it's just the world looks different, you know.
Yeah, I love
Yeah.
that. Yeah, and they
Yeah.
talked about front loading our students with information. So
Hmm.
any unfamiliar vocabulary or text, giving them as much information as what you can up front. So again, that frees up that working memory. So when they
Yeah.
do sit down to read it, they're able to read it instead of, you know, working so hard to decode words and then completely losing it or focusing on the comprehension piece. So
Yeah.
I'm really happy for you, Rosemarie. I'm happy that you were able to experience literature the way that you experienced it as an adult. And
Hmm.
again, any parents, whether you're here with us tonight or if you're listening to this replay, all the accommodations that Rosemarie listed right there on the screen are all incredible things that you can do with your children at home, or as an adult. If you are finding, you know, sitting down to read a book is difficult, then try one of these things and maybe you'll experience literature in a whole
Yeah.
new light like Rosemarie was
Yes.
able to do.
Yeah. It's really fat, really, really great.
That's awesome. And I saw one of the parents commented about acting those plays out, you know, the
Yes.
drama piece of it, and I love
Yes.
that. And
Yes.
the Dyslexic
Yeah.
Advantage spoke to that as well, where
Yes.
they said giving kids the script to read
Oh,
from a movie
yeah.
instead of just having them watch
Yeah.
the movie, having them
Yeah.
read the movie script was
Yeah.
another way to
It's
engage
awesome.
them,
Yeah, that's
especially,
awesome. Yeah,
yeah, that was
and my
awesome.
son-in-law used to act stuff out and everything too, but then, you know, when he was little, he got older, he was like, "No, I'm too big for that." But anyway, whatever, you know? But
Awesome.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
All right, Rosemarie. So if you want to talk a little bit about this slide and the
Sure,
Academy,
sure, sure. Yeah, so I wanna say that the Academy has really shaped me and made me into a better teacher. I mean, I wanna say that I was a very good teacher, but I have more information now, and so that teaching is not as hard now because I understand better. And I I feel like it's sort of like the Lion King, where everything like it's like wow, it's like okay, so I had to let go of my son, let go of homeschooling, and let him go to this private high school. And by teaching other kids via the academy, it really helped me let go. And at the same time, I learned more about these the struggles and how to reach these kids, which spoke to my son and myself. And it was just like this big thing. It was like awesome. But one thing I have to say is that reading is just so awesome, and we should never give up on it. Like I gave up on it, but then everything had to be just perfect for me to go back to it and say, okay, I'm going to really read again and I'm going to make something of it. So you have to, I just want to urge you to say, to act and say, I'm going to help my kid to read now. I'm not going to let dust go underneath my feet or anything. And the thing that really helped me was that I had a financial commitment, and that I had a schedule that I had to keep, and that really helped me um, read. I mean, I always could read, but comprehend better, and to say that reading doesn't blow, you know.
yeah,
So yeah,
yep. And you were given access to it, right?
yeah, yeah,
I feel like we've talked about this some too. You know, if your computer's dead, you would, if a student or your child's computer is dead, you would go and get the charger for it, right?
yeah,
If your vision was impaired, you would get a pair of glasses. So
yeah,
if a child's reading is impaired, we just need to give them access to the text. And whether that's through an audio book or whether that's through breaking the text down or front loading them with
yeah.
information, everything you spoke to tonight, Rosemarie, it's not that we're making it or taking it easy on our kids, we're making it accessible for them.
Yes. Yes. Yes, because I needed to do those certain things for me to understand Hamlet and Dracula and all that. Okay, thank you.
Rosemarie, you did amazing. Thank you so much. We're so blessed to have you at the Academy, truly. We really,
Thank you.
really are. You're welcome. All right, so now for our second coach, Mahogany Murphy. She is our reading comprehension coach. And again, I just feel like my son is the most blessed individual because another one of his coaches and just speaks about them all the time. He was getting his hair cut the other day, talking all about a story that Miss Mahogany was, teaching him about. So just an amazing coach that you are, Mahogany. So I know that you're going to touch base on some different things today. So just let me know if I go too fast through the slides or if I need to go back or whatever, just like Rosemarie did, okay?
Okay. Can you hear me okay?
Yep, you're perfect. All right, Mahogany, I'll pass it on over to you if you want to start kind of with, oh my goodness, that adorable girl right there and kind of how it all started.
My name is Mahogany. I am a reading coach, as Kayla said, with the Academy. I homeschooled my kids since the beginning. When my oldest son, I have a 16-year-old, when he was 4, he learned how to read with no problem. I assumed that I was this wonderful teacher and that my daughter, who was 2 years younger than him, would have no issues learning how to read. When she was 4 years old, she expressed an interest. I always read aloud to all of my children, and she said, "I want to learn how to read." So I started working with her, and I noticed some things were different with her than with my oldest son. When she would try to read words, she would tilt her head like this. And I thought, that's kind of odd. So I would just gently tilt it back. Um, didn't fuss at her or anything. I just thought, that's weird. And I noticed she would skip small words like the word a or the. She would switch her B's and her D's. And I thought, a bunch of kids probably do this. Not a big deal. But then I noticed we were sounding out one-syllable words like cat and bat year after year after year. And so now she's 7, 8, or not now, but back then she was 7, 8 years old. I've bought, I think, 3 reading programs at this point. I can't even remember. And she was not progressing at the rate I thought she could progress at. So I talked to more homeschool moms than I can count, asking them for help and advice. And they all told me, oh, she's just a late bloomer. By the time she's 8, it'll be okay. So I relaxed just a little bit. I probably should have relaxed a whole lot more back then, but we have higher standards for our children than we do for other people's children. At least I do. So then she turns 9 years old, and we started using a program called All About Reading, and it did help. I did see progress, but at this point, now she notices the differences between her peers and herself when it comes to reading when we're at public events. And so now she's fighting me and saying, well, I don't want to have to do this. And this is for babies. And so now I have to deal with her hormones and her attitude as well as trying to help her read. And when it's someone else's child, you tend to show more patience. But when it's your own, sometimes we can show less patience, if I'm just being real here. So, around this time, our family dynamic changed, and I had to get a full-time job, or get a part-time job rather. And so I started teaching ESL online to Chinese students. And during my training, they taught me the importance of maintaining a positive learning environment, of smiling a lot, and the importance of making sure that the student is not stressed. And so as I'm smiling at 5 a.m. with my Chinese students, I thought, wow, I'm being such a hypocrite here. Like, my own kids are getting the tired me, let's just get through this me. And I thought, I need to change myself so that my homeschooling environment will hopefully thrive. So I began to relax a lot more with my own children, and I could feel the difference. I don't know how else to say this, but like the energy in the room felt different once I changed and created this peaceful, relaxing, loving environment for her to learn in. She still was not progressing the way I wanted her to, but I had to start treating her as well as I was treating the students who were paying me to teach them. And it did help. I started telling her it's okay that you're not, on the same level with your peers. It's okay to fail. Instead of getting frustrated with how she was fighting me with her attitude because of her own frustration, I started tickling her when she would get upset because she couldn't read that sentence or something like that. And that helped de-stress her a lot. But she still does not like to read.
Aw. Um, you talked a little bit about this, like your patience and your relaxation. And I felt like that's a great reminder for, all of us parents sometimes. Definitely true. Our patients look different with our kiddos when they're within the home, but they're still our same learners, right? Especially if you're homeschooling, or if you're doing homework with them or things like that. You know, with our kiddos that challenge, their stress level is up here, and they say that as kids, they with the adults that they're around, they either tend to match where we are or even, go further. So as adults, instead of us matching that stress level, we need to maintain it down here. So we help to bring those kids down, right? But much easier said than done. I 100% know that. Awesome. So anything, Mahogany, I'll let you take over with this slide and share.
Well, I think I pretty much already touched on
Okay.
the researching dyslexia part. So when I came to the academy, I feel like what you need comes to you when you're ready for it at the right time. And
Yeah.
so just where we were in our lives, I feel like the academy came at the right time to give me the knowledge I needed so I could help her. Reading the book, The Dyslexia Advantage, and working with other students really changed the way I saw her little, what I consider to be quirks, like the tilting of the head and the letter reversals and her inability to comprehend what she read. When I read aloud to her, she could pretty much give it back to me. She could narrate back the story to me. But if I give her a history book, even I would give her what I call living books, which are books about a person, but it's more their life story. It's not that bland textbook type deal. If I gave that to her, she couldn't comprehend it in the same way. And so when I began to work at the academy and really talking to Rosemarie recently has helped me to present the information to her in a way where she can use skills to help her comprehend it. I know with the students here, after every paragraph, I'll ask them questions about the story, unless it's a story that I know they love. Like one student loves the story we're reading called Miss Lazar's Bazaar, and he can tell me every detail about that story. I don't have to ask him after every paragraph. But when it comes to information that maybe they're not as interested in, I will ask. And so I had to take that same skill and apply it to my own child, instead of just saying, here, now go produce, you know?
Mhm.
So I feel like the academy has helped me in my own journey with her. Now we do what Rosemarie said, and I have her write the sentence after every paragraph for her history and her literature book. And she also listens to it through audiobooks or a YouTube video where they're reading it aloud. Whereas before, when I tried to get her to listen to audiobooks, she didn't want to do it. So now I gently help her do it anyway. I just kind of say, well, you don't want to read it. You kind of need to do one of these, you know what I mean? Whereas before I would get frustrated. Now I'm just kind of like, okay, yeah, just go listen to one chapter for me, Um,
Yeah.
so yeah, and she's 14 now, and she has not been officially diagnosed. We actually have an appointment tomorrow afternoon where she will get her official diagnosis, and she's also starting vision therapy, which I did not know she needed. I knew she couldn't see really well when she was reading, but I did not know the severity of it. And when I was asking her the assessment questions for the vision therapy form, I was saying, do you see this? Do you see this when you're reading? She was like, yeah. And I was like, oh my gosh, really? Like, I didn't know you really couldn't see these letters. Like I can see them. And so,
Yeah.
and I started to do the mom shame thing that Rosemarie talked about, thinking, oh my gosh, like she's 14. I should have fixed this sooner because I'm a fixer. And I'm very big on prevention, and I'm looking at myself saying, you didn't fix any of this. And she's 14. It's not like she's 5. You know, she's almost out of the house at this point. And then I was talking to a friend about it, and she said, maybe this is the perfect time for it. And I said, you know what? That's a good way to look at it.
Yeah, yeah, totally agree. And I know the Dyslexic Advantage kind of touched base on that too, because the visual part of dyslexia, you know, is always it's a big controversy, right? Some people say, you know, it's, you know, vision 100% related, and then other people say that vision has nothing to do with it. It's completely language based. And, you know, the Dyslexic Advantage touched base where, you know, it could be both. You know, it doesn't have to be one or the other. It could be both things. And Sam, he had vision therapy as well, and helped him tremendously in ways that, you know, we weren't like catching a ball or just his overall coordination. So we saw improvements like that to start with. So good for you for reaching out. And I feel like as parents, that's kind of what we have to do sometimes, is just exhaust every avenue, right? Because we are fixers and we just want the very best for our kiddos. So she's a beautiful young lady.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Love this book. Love it, love it, love it. If you want to go ahead and speak to the Dyslexic Advantage and things
so
on
the
the slide.
Dyslexic Advantage does talk about all of the wonderful, amazing strengths people with dyslexia have. And so after reading it, I started looking at my daughter and saying, I think we need to really hone in on those strengths, and I need to verbalize them to her more frequently so that her confidence can be built. Her confidence is not as high as it could be because she struggles with reading and comprehension, and she's not on level with her peers. And so the book was really an eye-opener for me, and it gave me such hope for the possibilities of what her life can look like as she continues to discover who she is really, and walk in those strengths.
I love that. I feel like Rosemarie did such a great job, like touching base on like the academic part, and Mahogany, you're doing such a great job, like touching base on the social emotional part of our kiddos, because it really is both sides of it. And I feel like sometimes we are so focused on the academic piece because we want them to get, you know, to a certain point, and we don't want to see our kids struggle. Of course, none of us do as parents, you know, and we forget about that social emotional part, you know. And how I knew from Dean Braginier from Noticeability, he speaks to, they did a study where children with dyslexia feel the same, can feel the same level of shame as someone who has been involved with incest. And so like, if you think of that for a second, like that really like kind of, at least to me, I was like, oh my goodness, like my poor son, you know, like he is feeling shame like to the max. And so, you know, just remembering that sometimes I feel like as a parent is really important, because you really do have to step back and say, you know, like, all right, let's flip the script, right? Like, let's look at these strengths and how can we make our kids feel better about themselves?
Right.
Yes, thank you so much for sharing that. And then your last sentence you have there, like, loving her for who she is and not how she performs academically has made us closer. Do you have anything that you want to add to that? I love that line.
I think it pretty much sums it all up. I see her so differently now than I did back when she was 7 and 8 and 9 and 10, and we were so frustrated and struggling with this issue. Now I look for opportunities to help her read. If we're cooking, I'll say, you know, read me the recipe, and I'll notice she's skipping words, and I say, it's okay, you know. And I see it more as an opportunity for us to connect, because I realized had we not had this challenge, I don't know that she and I would have the relationship that we do have now. I think it's because we had to work through this that we are closer. Closer in a different way than I am with my other 2 children, because I do have 2 other children. And I also think that this is really good for her. I know it's hard and it's tough for people who have learning challenges, but I think it's so amazing because they have had to persevere as children. I think they will be stronger as adults when they have to go through hard times, because we are all adults here and life happens, and life can be very hard sometimes. And I think it gives them a resilience that others may not have, who have not had to push through these type of challenges.
Yeah, absolutely. Couldn't agree more. Anything either of you ladies would love to add? Mahogany, thank you so much. Again, I feel like you and Rosemarie were perfect. You guys complemented one another and definitely spoke to things that, I know that I needed to hear tonight, and I'm sure our parents here, anyone that watches the recording, like you said, it comes to the ears that need to hear it at certain times. So I appreciate both of you so very much. Anything that you guys want to add? No? Okay. Thank you, guys. So as we just summarize this up and get ready to be on our ways for the evenings, just kind of some success stories that we have noticed from the academy. Here's our kiddo where his parent was, saying that he didn't even realize how much he was writing. And we all know that writing can be so difficult for our kids. So and here is such a handsome young man, I have to tell you. That this is my son, but his writing coach actually helped him submit a poem into the Dyslexic Advantage. They were having a writing contest, and he received a letter back from the founders of that, and really boosted his self-confidence. And I feel like sometimes that's what this is all about, right? Is just helping them love themselves for who they are and noticing that they can do great things. So this was an awesome time for him. Another parent testimony, just talking about the rapport. Our coaches do such a phenomenal job building rapport with our students, really making our students want to do well for themselves, but also to do well for their coaches. Cutie Patootie reading Dog Man. Again, another one, just pleased with the progress. We're seeing progress with our kiddos every day. And we know how to have a good time. We know how to have fun, which again, it keeps our kiddos wanting to come back. We are year-round schooling because everything that we do is based off of what's best for our kids, not what's convenient or not what the state wants us to do. It's 100% dedicated to what's best for our kids. And we know that children with dyslexia or working memory issues can't have that long of a break. It's not what's best for their learning. So our school calendar is year round. So we got to keep it fun and we got to keep it motivating. And our coaches definitely know how to do that. Miss Marnie, she's amazing. And here's a parent speaking to our tutoring program as well. So again, not only do we have our full-time students, or if you are a homeschooling parent and you realize, that maybe your child does need just a structured literacy class, they can come in for our structured literacy class. So you can buy them a la carte, or you can do our tutoring program. So we have lots of different options. Again, we really just want to do what's best for kiddos and give them what they need. Again, right now we're servicing grades 3 through 8, 4 days a week. Structured literacy, reading comp, phonemic awareness, math and writing, and low student to teacher ratios. And our parents who are here, thank you so much for your time. Our parents who are listening, thank you for your time. We know that you probably have taken something home away from our coaches tonight that you can implement with your kiddos. And we just ask that if you have a kiddo that you think, may benefit from the academy, then please, we have our training camp next week. Sign them up. It's 3 days. They get immersed in the schedule, right? Like they're just like a full-time student would for those 3 days. And if you already have students at our school, then we ask that you share this with your friends or with your family, because again, we know dyslexia is 1 in 5 people. And so, it's definitely out there and affecting kiddos, and we absolutely have exactly what they need to help them progress. And we would love to give them a little taste of that during our training camps. And for more information about any of our services or questions about anything, you can access our website at theacademyway.org or email us at info@theacademyway.org. Thank you guys so much for your time. Again, Mahogany, Rosemarie, you are amazing. We are so blessed to have you at the Academy teaching our students. And so thank you guys so much. Parents, thank you for your time. Thank you for joining us. Please email us. Let us know if you have any questions. We hope that you guys all have a great night. All right. Thanks, guys. Bye.